Study section 10. Social perception, our view of self and others. Introduction. This lecture focuses on how an individual interprets the behavior of those around them, i.e., attribution process, and what attracts us to a friend. Basic concepts in social perception are also explored. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Describe and explain the concept of interpersonal attraction. 2. Discuss the terms associated with interpersonal attraction. And 3. Explain obedience and power and various causes of power. Pretest. What is interpersonal attraction? Content. The way we look at ourselves plays an important role in how we see the world. The way we see the world plays an important role in how we see ourselves. In this sense, our view of self and others is an ever-changing circle of influence. We know that those who are happy see more positive aspects of the world than those who are depressed. We also know that living in an abusive household or an overly restrictive environment can both lead to depression. This section will explore the social areas of attribution, how we interpret those around us, and attraction, what we seek in a friend or partner, self-perception. According to Bem, 1967, with self-perception, we infer our attitudes from our behavior in the same way that we infer other people's attitudes for their behavior. When we observe people behaving under no apparent external constraints, we use their behavior to make inferences about their attitudes. In the same way, when situation we are in does not place strong constraints on our behavior, we might infer our attitudes from our behavior. There are many important factors in how one perceives oneself. First, self-esteem. A person's positive and negative evaluations of his or her self-defeating behavior, leading to depression or other mental disorders. Self-awareness can encourage people to notice self-discrepancies. Most people find ways to keep up their self-esteem through self-enhancement techniques. These include, but are not limited to, taking credit for success, but making excuses for failure, comparing ourselves to less fortunate people, and self-handicapping. Research suggests that such positive illusory thinking can maintain mental health, but that too much of it can be self-defeating. Attribution theory. We tend to explain our own behavior and the behavior of others by assigning attributes to this behavior. An attribute is an inference about the cause of behavior. According to attribution theory, we tend to explain our own behavior and the behavior of others by assigning attributes to this behavior. There are basically two sources for our behavior: those influenced by situational, external factors, and those influenced by dispositional, internal factors. Imagine walking into your boss office and he immediately tells you in an angry tone not to bother him. An external explanation of this behavior might be, "He's really a nice guy, but the stress is overwhelming. He needs a vacation." On the other hand, you might see the same behavior and say, "What a jerk. I don't know why he's so angry all the time." The same behavior is given two very opposite explanations. Many factors play a role in how we assign attributes to behaviors. Obviously, our view of the world, our previous experience with a particular person or situation, and our knowledge of the behavior play an important role. Other factors can influence our interpretation as well, and there are two important errors or mistakes we tend to make when assigning these attributes. 1. Fundamental attribution error. This refers to the tendency to overestimate the internal and underestimate the external factor when explaining the behavior of others. This may be a result of our tendency to pay more attention to the situation rather than to the individual. Ada, 1958, and is especially true when we know little about the other person. For example, the last time you were driving and got cut off, did you say to yourself, "What an idiot," or something similar? Or did you say, "She must be having a rough day"? Chances are that this behavior was assigned mostly internal attributes, and you don't give a second thought to what external factors are playing a role in our driving behavior. 2. Self-serving bias. We tend to equate successes to internal and failures to external attributes. Miller and Ross, 1975. Imagine getting a promotion. Most of us will feel that this success is due to hard work, intelligence, dedication, and similar internal factors. But if you're fired, well, obviously, your boss wouldn't know a good thing if it were staring her in the face. This bias is true for most people, but for those who are depressed, has low self-esteem, or view themselves negatively, the bias is typically opposite. For these people, a success may mean that a multitude of negatives have been overlooked and that luck was the primary reason. For failures, the depressed individual will likely see their own negative qualities, such as stupidity, as being the primary factor. Perceiving others. In regard to how people perceive others, there are a group of theories called attribution theory. Attribution theory. It describes how people attribute the cause of behavior. A personal or internal attribution is an attribution to a person's characteristics that is from within, such as intelligence or effort. A situational or external contribution is an attribution outside the individual, such as luck or God. The fundamental attribution error states that in perceiving other people's behavior, people tend to focus on personal causes and underestimate situational causes. Such thinking can lead people to hold onto bad first impressions as well as stereotypes. Perceiving groups. A stereotype is a set of beliefs that associates a whole group of people with a few certain traits. Two different processes are involved in their formation. 1. Categorization. Sorting individual objects or people in groups, and 2. Out-group homogeneity effect, which is a tendency of people to overestimate to similarity of people in the out groups than people in the in group. Although categorization and other shortcut method of thinking can be very helpful, they also contribute and arise from racism, sexism, and other forms of prejudice and discrimination. Interpersonal attraction. Attraction. Why are we attracted to certain people and not others? Why do our friends tend to be very similar to each other? And what causes us to decide on a mate? Many of these questions relate to social psychology, in that society influence and our own beliefs and traits play an important role. Research has found 5 reasons why we choose our friends. Proximity. The vast majority of our friends live close to where we live, or at least where we lived during the time period of the friendship developed. Naimo and Lawton, 1975. Obviously, friendship develop after getting to know someone, and this closeness provides the easiest way to accomplish this goal. Having assigned seats in a class or group setting would result in more friends whose last name started with the same letter as yours. Sengal, 1974. Association. We tend to associate our opinions about other people with our current state. In other words, if you meet someone during a class you really enjoy, they may get more likability points than if you meet them during that class you can't stand. Similarity. On the other hand, imagine that person above agree with you this particular class is the worst they have taken, the agreement of similarity between the two of you would likely result in more attractiveness. Nehemiah and Mitchell, 1988. Reciprocal liking. Simply put, we tend to like those better who also like us back. This may be a result of the feeling we get about ourselves, knowing that we are likable. When we feel good when we are around somebody, we tend to report a higher level of attraction towards that person. Forgas, 1992. Sanjok and Mintosh, 1992. Physical attractiveness. Physical attraction plays a role in who we choose as friends, although not as much so as in who we choose as a mate. Nevertheless, we tend to choose people who we believe to be attractive and who are close to how we see our own physical attractiveness. This last statement brings up an important factor in how we determine our friends and partner. Ever wonder why very attractive people tend to hang around other very attractive people, or why wealthy men seem to end up with physically attractive, perhaps even much younger women? There is some truth to these stereotypical scenarios because we tend to assign social assets or attraction points to everyone we meet. These points are divided into categories and at least at some level know our score. We tend to then pick friends and partners who have a similar score that we do. Hence, an attractive person hangs with other attractive people, or a wealthy older man gets the beautiful younger woman. Think about your friends and how you will rate them in these categories to find out what is important to you. Interpersonal attraction can be thought of as a force acting between two people, tending to draw them together and resisting their separation. A person or a person's qualities that tend to attract or appeal to another person's desires. When measuring interpersonal attraction, one must refer to the qualities of the attracted as well as the qualities of the attractor to achieve predictive accuracy. Repulsion is also a factor in the process of interpersonal attraction. One's conception of attraction to another can vary from extreme attraction to extreme repulsion. Among the factors that determine attraction are proximity, familiarity, physical attractiveness, and similarity. Proximity, you're more likely to like someone who lives near you, works with you, or attend the same classes as you. For instance, the closer students lived to one another, the more likely they will become friends. It is also important for dating relationships too. Proximity makes us more familiar with certain people. Thus, the more familiar we become with a stimulus, whether a car, a painting, or a professor, the more we tend to like them. Morland and Sanjos, 1982. Proximity not only lets us become familiar with people, it also lets us note their appearance. We tend to like physically attractive people more than physically unattractive ones. Attractive adults and children are judged more positively and treated more positively by others. Research indicates that we are likely to associate with people who share our attitudes. Drigota, 1993, showed that attitude similarity plays a more important role in interpersonal attraction than attitude dissimilarity does in preventing. Question: 4 factors which determine attraction are obedience and power. Why do we obey some people and not others? Why are you able to influence your friends? What attributes cause a person to be more influential? These questions are paramount in understanding social order. The answers to these questions also play an important role in many professions such as sales and marketing, and of course, politics. Let's start with a closer look at what power is. Power is typically thought of as having a certain attribute which give one person more influence over another. This attribute could be intelligence or experience. It could be job little or perhaps money. According to most social psychologists, there are 5 types of power: coercive, reward, legitimate, expert, and referent. Coercive power means the power punish. Parents are said to have coercive power because they can place their child in timeout. For example, bosses have coercive power because they can fire an employee or assign an employee a less pleasant job. Reward power is almost the opposite. It is the power to reward. In that sense, parents and bosses have this type of power as well, as do many others in our lives. Legitimate power refers to the power granted by some authority, such as power a police officer has due to the local or state government, or the power a professor has due to the rules of a college or university. Expert power results from experience or education. Those individuals with more knowledge tends to have more power in situations where that knowledge is important. For instance, the physician will have more power in a medical emergency than the plumber, but when the pipes explode and the house is being flooded, the physician is not the person to call. Referent power refers to admiration or respect. When we look up to people because of their accomplishment, their attitude, or any other personal attribute, we tend to give them more power over us. Imagine being asked to do something by your hero or your favorite movie star. We are very likely to comply out of admiration or respect. Using power to influence others. Now that we know what power is and how people get it, let's talk about how this power is used to influence others. Most of us know that liking and agreeing tend to go together. We agree with our friends about many issues, especially the bigger ones, and often disagree with our opponents. Also, beliefs and behaviors tend to go together. For instance, most people who believe stealing is very immoral would not steal. Most who believe littering is wrong do not litter. What's interesting about this latter concept is what happens when our belief and our behavior do not correspond. You might think that we would change the way we act, but in real world, we tend to change our belief about a topic before we would change our behavior. The person who believes littering is wrong after throwing a soda can from their car window might say to himself, "It was only one time," or "Look at all the other trash cans on the freeway." In this sense, his belief has changed. Littering is now okay if it is only done once or if others have littered first. To equate this with influencing others, we see that if we can change the way a person behaves, we can change the way they think or feel. Imagine a car salesman who is able to convince the potential buyer that this new car is the one he wants to buy. The salesman might try to use many different techniques, but one is a test drive. The theory behind this is that if the person's action include driving the car, they are more likely to change their belief about the car. There are other variables associated with influencing others or attitude change. Let's take a look first at what attributes the source or the talker help or influence others. First of all is power. As discussed above, the more types of power and the stronger each of these is, the more influential she will be. Second, a person must be believable in order to influence us. The source must therefore be trustworthy. After all, if we don't believe someone, they are going to have a much more difficult time changing our minds. Finally, attractiveness plays a role in how we are influenced. We tend to be influenced more by attractive people including physical and social attractiveness, likability, demeanor, and dress. The target or listener plays a role in how it will be influenced as well. Those with low self-esteem and or high self-doubt tends to be more influenced than others. The more we doubt our own ability, the more we look to others for guidance or input. Other factors such as age, IQ, gender, or social status do not appear to play a significant role in how we are influenced by others. Finally, let's look at the relationship between the source and the target. First of all, there needs to be some similarity between the two people. If the target or listener does not feel any similarity with the talker, he is much less likely to accept what she's saying. After all, we have nothing in common. So what could she possibly know about my life? The more similar the two, the greater the influential ability. Second, there needs to be a moderate discrepancy in attitude. If the difference between the two is too large, changing the listener's attitude or belief will be too difficult. If the difference is too small, then no significant change will take place at all. The difference must be great enough that a change is possible, but small enough that the listener is open to the change. Post-test. What is interpersonal attraction? End of study section 10. Thanks for listening.